We live in a world that often treats fatherhood as a supporting role, a secondary character in the story of a child's life. We see the statistics about fatherless homes, we see the impact of generational cycles of absence, and we see the struggle of men trying to lead without a map. But what happens when a man decides that just getting by isn't enough? What happens when he realizes that his presence isn't just a preference? It's the actual architecture of his family's future. Today, we are diving deep with a man who has made his life's mission to ensure no dad walks alone. He's an anchor, a speaker, and a relentless advocate for the comprehensive role of fathers in our communities. He has lived through adversity, he has navigated the hurdles, and he has emerged with a blueprint for what it means to be a world-class dad in a modern age. We are exploring how to break the chains of the past, why men's mental health is the secret weapon for a healthy home, and why society flourishes when we stop treating fatherhood as an afterthought and start treating it as a primary solution. We will explore all of this in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. This program is made possible by financial support from Smile Online Course and Books. Smile Online offers online courses for teens and young adults designed to help them master social and career skills. Subject matter includes customer service skills, job interviewing, electronic etiquette, and managing stress. More information is available at thefatherhoodchallenge.com. That's thefatherhoodchallenge.com.
Welcome to the Fatherhood Challenge, a movement to awaken and inspire fathers everywhere to take great pride in their role and to challenge society to understand how important fathers are to the stability and culture of their family's environment. Now, here's your host, Jonathan Guerrero.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me and my co-host and son, Isaac.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fatherhood Challenge.
This episode is called Devin Coleman on Resilience, Legacy, and Why Dads Matter Most. Joining us is Devin Coleman, known to many as the Fatherhood Advocate. Devin, welcome to the Fatherhood Challenge.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Devin, you said that your life's mission is to help men find their way. Let's start at the beginning. Why is the cause of fatherhood so deeply personal to you? And what was that moment that you realized your story could become someone else's survival guide?
I'll tell you. Great question. So for the most part, I was always involved with my daughter. And in the beginning, I was a weekend dad. When she was getting ready to go into kindergarten, let's say around age 5, she came to live with me full time, and I became a single father. It's two things that I noticed. It's a vast difference between like spending time and being a dad Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to learning how to manage that space Sunday through Saturday on a regular basis. And a gap that I saw was I didn't really get a lot of support from systems. And it wasn't a roadmap for fathers. So on one hand, I had people cheering me on, taking care of my child. And I think it felt like a hinge of resentment from others for the fact that I would actually do it. And what helped me get through that moment, honestly, was a lot of intentional support from my family, a few friends, and people that worked in different systems that taught me how to navigate them without actually having a system itself help me.
So, Devin, you've dedicated your life to the fatherhood cause. Was there a specific dark night of the soul or a singular moment of realization in your own journey where you shifted from just being a father to becoming an advocate for all fathers?
Well, my experience going from weekend father to full-time dad, those experiences, made me want to sort of take notes and then share lessons learned so other fathers wouldn't have to experience some of those harsh things that I experienced during that time in my life.
Many men grow up with a father-shaped hole in their lives. Looking back at your younger self, what was the biggest lie you believed about manhood, and how did unlearning that lie become the foundation for your mission today?
Man, I think the biggest lie was wrapped into the idea that as a man, we had to have it all figured out. Like we had to do it on our own, whatever it is, and build a life on our own. And if we couldn't do that alone, we somehow failed. And that stunted my growth to a degree. it was actually, I would say, having a child that made me realize that this thing is bigger than me and I need to tap into resources and connections and lessons learned from other men. That was critically important to who I am right now. And unlearning that, how did I unlearn it? Man, unlearning it was really tied to wanting to be the best father that I could be for my child, wanting to be the best role model that I could be for my nieces and nephews, and then be a good representation of manhood for like the youth that I was around.
Devin, I can relate to that so much because that whole unlearning thing that you just talked about is like, for me, it took therapy, years and years and years of therapy to unlearn this I call it self-preservation mode, where I got to take care of myself. Of course, there's some logic to it because it's the whole, we use the analogy of, well, if the airplane has an issue, before you can help somebody else with their oxygen mask, you got to get your own oxygen mask on. So for me, that's how I justified the self-preservation. And so, but the problem was I stayed there. I stayed in that mode, and I would not accept help from anybody else because I saw it as a problem with me. If I have to be helped, there is something wrong with me. That programming was deep. I mean, like childhood deep. There were deep roots to that thinking. Is that what you found as well?
Absolutely. Like if I couldn't do it myself, I'm failing in some way.
Part of this, and this might be good for dads listening to understand, especially if you identify with this and you're listening to this episode right now, and you're like, yeah, man, that's me. I got that problem. Okay, so it took you most of your life to plant those deep roots, to develop those deep roots of self-preservation, and to develop that thinking of, I should be able to handle this myself, or there's something wrong with me. So you think you're just going to undo that thinking overnight? And that's realistic? No, it ain't happening. And that's just it. That's why I said it took, for me at least, it took years and years and years of therapy to begin to pull that root system out of the ground of that false thinking and that bad ideology. That's why it's a fight. And Devin, this is why the other part of what you said is so important. And that is, you just said, you can't do this by yourself. You can't even pull that root system out of the ground by yourself. And you were never meant to. And that's the new thinking that has to set in. You weren't meant to do this alone.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I began thriving when I created a network of men that I could talk to, be transparent with, and kick ideas back and forth. Because I don't have a monopoly on the fatherhood thing, right? But I have a brain trust. So
yeah,
I created space to talk to men that have children older than me, men that are grandfathers. I spend a lot of time at the foot of my grandfather, just like soaking up wisdom. And another thing that I do is I spend time with younger fathers. Because I just think it's important to keep the knowledge thread going on.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of parents saying, times have changed. And times have changed. But
yes.
Our morals and values should be solid. The way we approach things may be changed. And the analogy that I may give is, if you have to go to work in the morning, right? You know where you're starting at. You know where you're trying to end up.
Yeah.
What if it's an accident on the road or a diversion of traffic because they add extra lanes? That doesn't change where you're trying to end up. It just changes how you navigate the traffic.
Exactly. You often talk about the fatherhood comprehensive, in a culture that often reduces a man's value to his paycheck. How do you redefine provision to include the emotional and spiritual architecture of a child's life?
I had, number one, come to the realization that, in popular culture, when we look at dads, it has always been, oh, dad need to pay for this and provide for this, right? And in raising my child and raising my daughter, man, I realized that she needed more than just money. right? And having conversations with, my godson, my little cousins, my nephews and nieces. I just like listened to the things that they were saying. And I ran a program for young men, middle school and high school age. And we used to have conversations about fathers. The topic deadbeat fathers might come up. And what I realized was none of the youth talked about money. It was the adults that talked about the money. The youth talked about time spent in investment. They wanted dad to show up and be there. Then I saw that a lot of some dads didn't show up if they felt like they couldn't bring anything tangible to the table.
Wow.
And that broadened my perspective in what I realized that our kids needed. Like, of course they need finances because things cost out here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they need guidance too.
Yeah.
They need love. They need to know what it feels like to be loved from a healthy, honorable place.
Yep.
They need to know what it feels like to be valued. They need to know what it looks like to do both of those things so they can know how to do it and then understand when love is being sent to them and how to reciprocate it, those sorts of things. Also, though, again, having conversations with other fathers, joining groups, reading different books and materials, it broadened my scope in terms of how I view fatherhood and what our families need from us.
You speak a lot about legacy. You look at your family tree. What is the specific generational cycle you feel the most proud of breaking? And how do you help other men identify the chains that they didn't even know that they were carrying?
So, looking at my family tree, I'm going to tell you, it was a cycle that I wanted to continue. When the decision was made that my daughter would live with me full time, matter of fact, I go further back. The day she was born, I had a conversation with some of the women in my family, right? And my mother gave me a one-liner. She was like, the men in this family take care of their children.
Whoa.
Period. And then when I look back at my grandfathers, both maternal and paternal, like they took care of their children. So I made up in my mind that, in this instance where we see issues in terms of whether families staying together, co-parenting, whatever the challenge may be, that I was going to find a way to take care of my child. And
Wow.
I committed to it.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew I couldn't bring any excuses to her. Man, and listen, it's challenging being a dad. It's even more challenging when the romantic relationship when you and the mother didn't work out, right?
Yep.
In spite of all that, the call to action was the men in this family take care of their children.
Wow.
So I needed to figure out how to take care of my child. Period.
Wow. What a testament. Wow.
I just had a conversation last week with a group, and I asked the crowd, how many of y'all have had tough days and challenges? Everybody raised their hand, right? And then I said, you still here. So up until this point, you've overcame your toughest days. You're a winner. You may have been behind a proverbial 8-ball, had challenges. You may be facing challenges now, but you survived the toughest days. It was a perspective shift. And when I think what that comes from for me is, I was in some adverse situations where at times I felt like, life could have been over, or how do I rebuild my life from not only the mistakes that I made, but the consequences of those mistakes and how they can appear to be everlasting depending on who's the judge of them. and I've learned how to, number one, have faith. Like it increased my prayer life. Um, like I thank God for the opportunities that He presented me with and gave me the courage to keep going on, even when it felt like doors were being slammed in my face. And understanding that every day I have a choice because the challenges are real. Like some of these challenges are real. Um, I learned to control the controllables. So
Mm.
if I can't control it, like leave it alone and control the things that I can control. And that led to me, getting creative in a lot of ways, man, building skill sets, building relationships, um, being okay to change environments. Like if the environment not serving me, right, it's time to change the environment. And those are some of the things that help me and a lot of the things that I share with other people in a real way and in real time because it's not just textbook. A lot of it came from application as well.
There's something about what you just said I want to zero in on, and that's faith. You mentioned faith and you mentioned prayer. There are many dads, I would say, that have walked maybe similar paths to what you've walked, and they've survived and they've succeeded and they've done well. But you have involved faith in your story, a prayer life, an active prayer life, which means an active, close relationship with God. What unique advantage is that giving you over dads that choose not to?
It gave me a roadmap. And not only does it give me a roadmap, I know that I don't like have to do it on my own. That's what gave me the permission to, number one, like seek wise counsel. Number two, to think about as being a father, we supposed to leave an inheritance to our children. And then watch this, having conversations with other men and in prayer about what inheritance really means. Because you can get caught up and think inheritance just means money. And it doesn't necessarily, right? Like how many times do we see money get passed down to children and they're not prepared to steward the money and they lose it, or it drives them to lifestyles that they regret eventually and their parents wouldn't approve of. So it gave me permission to like think about morals and values and think about leadership and think about like what type of name did I leave to my children and my children's children. It made that critically important. So that take a lot of pressure off in terms of thinking about what other people may think about me necessarily.
Carrying the torch for fatherhood can be heavy work. When you are pouring into other dads and hearing their struggles, how do you protect your own heart and ensure that you are still filling your own cup for your kids at home?
Whew. Yeah, great question. So the real answer is that's a life lesson. It was a time where I spent so much time volunteering in the community, volunteering with with children and families, right? And then I looked at my home and I looked at my sphere of influence, meaning the children that I feel I was called to be directly responsible for in some way, shape, or form, right? And I'm like, man, I'm kind of neglecting them because I'm spending more time in this area. And if I fail on doing my duties, the people that I'm responsible for will now fall into this gap of being needing different services. So that made me modify my approach. Number one, I created a space to get honest feedback. I created a space to get honest feedback from my daughter and from my nieces and nephews. And man, my niece them, they took full advantage of it. And they was like, hey, Uncle Devin, I think you could do this, this better or that better because this how we feel about it, right?
Wow.
I'm like, I say that's valuable information,
Yes.
right? And then giving my daughter the same leeway. Watch this, and then going back to the transparency, right? So if it's something that's a blind spot for me, that's critical for them, like make the adjustment. If it's something that my role as a father is calling me to do, or uncle because of my responsibility, then I could be open with them about that and they can understand it. And I think that helped. Now watch this. That also made me double down on like building bridges with fathers or programs that serve fathers, because deep down in my heart, man, I just feel like if we empower dads to be dads and give dads tools to be dads and minimize roadblocks to dads being dads, man, dads gonna be in their children's lives regardless of funding.
Oh man, this is a good segue into the next question I have. Many fathers feel that society or the legal system is actually rigged against them. How do you empower a man to be a world-class dad, even when the circumstances around his fatherhood, like custody or distance, are far from ideal?
Whew. So I think number one is making sure that we understand what fatherhood is from the lens of being a father. Because a lot of times you will hear fatherhood talked about from the lens of being a mother. You will hear fatherhood talked about from the lens of what the child needs. And less often publicly do we hear fatherhood talked about from the lens of being a dad. When dads understand like how critical their presence is to the child, whether they're in the home or not, and understand the data that supports that, I think that'll empower them to number one, see their value. In terms of managing system spaces, it's getting fathers to like be unafraid to stand up and advocate for themselves, to show up in court if need be, to look for mediation, like identify the tools at your disposal and use them. And then also give yourself time, space, and grace. And I say that because, man, I met a dad and he hasn't had a lot of communication with his child for an extended period of time, like over a year or so, right? And he'll still text his child every single day because he believes one day his child will respond. And seeing that level of commitment to his role, even in an environment where outwardly it's not being received, not only was inspiring to me and heartfelt to me, but it just showed like the type of commitment that fathers have to have towards their calling.
You work with community leaders and organizations. What is the return on investment that a city or a community sees when they stop treating fatherhood as an afterthought and start treating it as a primary solution for social issues?
It's nothing but good things that happen when that happens, because you have that out there that shows when dad is involved, the children have a higher self-esteem. They tend to stay out of juvenile jails and prisons. They tend to perform better in school. They tend to have better social relationships. Like just everything is a plus when we have fathers that are engaged in their children's life. And that's whether dad is in the home or whether dad has a co-parenting situation. And I think ultimately what that does is now you have children performing better in school. And when they perform better in school, it's easier for the teacher to manage the classroom and actually teach. Those same children behave better in a community. And then when we had a right type of parental structure, those children begin to invest in the community, right? And now we get to prepare our next generation of leaders to take the reins when these parents pass the torch.
How can dads connect with you and learn more about what you're doing in fatherhood space?
Oh man, dads can connect with me. Listen, however they like to connect. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. I just created Dad HQ on TikTok. I think that's a super cool platform, Dad HQ. Then I have Fatherhood Navigator on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I'm gonna start blogging again and create a newsletter. But also look up Devin D. Coleman on YouTube. And it's over like 300 videos that dads can access. And then watch this. Moms can access it and children can access it and send it to the men in their life as well.
Just to make things easier, if you go to thefatherhoodchallenge.com, that's thefatherhoodchallenge.com. If you go to this episode and you're looking for the episode called Devin Coleman on Resilience, Legacy, and Why Dads Matter Most. So look for that episode title, go to the episode description, and look right below the episode description. I will have all of the links and references that Devin just mentioned posted right there for your convenience.
If you could sit down every young man who is about to become a father for the first time and you only had 60 seconds to speak into his life, what is the one truth and challenge you would want him to carry into the delivery room with him?
I would tell him that you don't have to figure it all out today. And you'll grow in your fatherhood at the same rate your child grows. Just give yourself time. Like, you're already gonna be your child's hero. So don't let the pressures of the world make you think you're failing. Let the look in your child's eyes be proof positive of the impact that you're having. And build your network of men that you can learn with and grow with as you grow in your fatherhood journey.
Wow, those are some powerful words to wrap up on. Devin, thank you so much for being on the Fatherhood Challenge, and I think this is going to be really the start of a healing journey for so many dads listening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fatherhood Challenge. If you would like to contact us, listen to other episodes, find any resource mentioned in this program, or find out more information about the Fatherhood Challenge, please visit thefatherhoodchallenge.com. That's thefatherhoodchallenge.com.